I paid $30,000 to completely fix the roof of the farmhouse out in the country. My daughter, Jessica, threw a fit. She said that for that old house I had money, but for my own daughter I had nothing. My son-in-law, Mark, tried to take what he felt was rightfully hers and grabbed my purse, looking for my bank card. But he found something else inside. He went white as a sheet, and the two of them ran out of my living room. But that was later. Much later. To understand how we arrived at that moment of madness, I need to tell this from the beginning. It all started 3 months ago when I visited my father out in the country. My name is Eleanor. I am 69 years old and have been a widow for 7 years. My husband left me this house where I live, some savings that I manage carefully, and a modest pension that is enough to live on without financial stress. I work part-time at a fabric store, more to keep myself busy than out of real necessity. The farmhouse is where I grew up. It is an old construction with thick walls, hardwood floors, and a huge yard full of apple and oak trees. My father, Arthur, lives there. He is 91 years old and is the most stubborn man I have ever met in my life. He refuses to leave that house. He says he was born there, and he is going to die there, and that nobody is going to move him while he has a breath of life left in his body. I understand him. That house holds his entire history. It is where he married my mother, where he raised me, where he lived 60 years of marriage before she passed away. Asking him to leave would be like asking him to give up everything he ever was. That is why I visit him every 2 weeks. I bring groceries, clean what he can no longer clean, check that he is taking his medications, and ensure the house is in order. Arthur is still independent, but age does not forgive. He does not handle the stairs well anymore. His left ear hardly works, but his mind is still clear, and his pride is intact. On my last visit before all this, I found something that broke my heart. There were buckets all over the house. 1 in the living room, 2 in the hallway, 3 inside my father's bedroom. The roof was leaking so badly that he could no longer sleep in his own bed. I found him sleeping on the sofa in the living room, the only place without leaks. I asked him why he had not told me anything. He just shrugged, with that way of his of minimizing everything, and told me he did not want to bother me, that he knew I had my own expenses, that he could hold on a little longer. I saw the water stains on the walls. I saw the mold growing in the corners. I saw how my father, a man who worked all his life, who built additions to that house with his own hands, was living in conditions that no one should accept. I was not going to allow my father to continue like this. The next day, I hired a general contractor recommended by a neighbor in the area. I asked him to check everything and give me a full estimate. The man went up on the roof, checked the timber structure, and looked at the shingles one by one. The diagnosis was worse than I imagined. The shingles were cracked in various spots. The wood structure was rotting from the moisture. Almost everything had to be changed. It was not just a patch job. It was a complete roof replacement. The final estimate was $30,000. I sat at my father's kitchen table to run the numbers. It was a lot of money, more than I had in my checking account, but I had an emergency fund that my husband always told me to keep for really important moments. And this was one of those moments. My father needed that roof. He needed to be able to sleep in his bed. He needed to be protected when the heavy storms came. There was no other option. I authorized the work. I signed the contract. I paid the 50% deposit with the money from my emergency fund. The crew would start the following week. I was at peace with my decision. I knew I was doing the right thing. My father had taken care of me all my life. Now it was my turn to take care of him. I did not imagine that this decision would turn into a nightmare. Jessica is my only daughter. She is 38 years old, has been married to Mark for 12 years, and they have 2 children, Ethan, who is 10 years old, and Sophie, who is 7. They live in a small apartment in a middle-class suburb. Mark works as a supervisor at a logistics company. Jessica is a receptionist at a dental office. Our relationship was always cordial. We were not one of those mother-daughter pairs who call each other every day or tell each other everything. But we saw each other on birthdays, at Christmas, and for Sunday lunches when she had time. We never had big fights. Everything was quiet and normal. But after I became a widow, something changed. Jessica started visiting me more frequently. At first, I saw it as something nice. I thought she was worried about me, that she wanted to make sure I was okay living alone. But over time, I started to notice a pattern in her visits. She always asked questions about money, asking if my Social Security check had come in that month, asking if I had paid this or that bill, asking how much I was spending at the grocery store, asking if I needed financial help managing things, asking if I was saving anything. And above all, she always ended up asking about the farmhouse. That question appeared in almost all our conversations. Jessica insisted that keeping that house made no sense, that it was too far away, that it was an unnecessary expense, that my father was already too old to live alone there, that I should bring him to live with me, or that we should think about a nursing home. I always gave her the same answer. That house was my father's home. He had lived there all his life, and as long as he wanted to stay, I was going to respect his decision. The house was his, not mine. Jessica would frown every time I said that. Sometimes she sighed. Sometimes she changed the subject quickly. But she never insisted too much. Until that moment, the construction work started on a Monday morning. I went out there to be present on the first day. I brought coffee for the crew. I talked to the contractor about the timeline and materials. Everything was going well. My father was happy. For the first time in months, I saw him truly smile. On Wednesday afternoon, Jessica called me on the phone. She said she wanted to come by and visit me. She said it had been a while since we had seen each other. I told her, of course, to come whenever she wanted. She arrived that same afternoon with Mark and the 2 kids. We drank coffee in the kitchen. The grandkids played in the backyard. It all seemed like a normal visit. We talked about the weather, the kids, school, unimportant things, until Jessica, casually, as if it were nothing, asked if it was true that I was renovating the farmhouse. I was surprised she knew. I asked her who had told her. She took another sip of coffee, slowly, and explained that a distant cousin who lives near there had seen the workers going up on the roof. The cousin had sent her a message asking if I was selling the property. I explained calmly that I was not selling anything, that I was just fixing the roof because it was in very bad shape, that my father could not keep living with leaks all over the house, sleeping on the sofa because his bedroom flooded every time it rained. Jessica nodded. She seemed to be processing the information. Mark, who until that moment had been quiet looking at his cell phone, looked up. Jessica asked me how much the renovation was costing. I told her the truth. $30,000. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Jessica set her coffee mug on the table with more force than necessary. Mark stared at me fixedly, as if he were evaluating something in his head. Then Jessica asked, with a strangely controlled voice, if I had that money available. I told her yes, that I was using my savings, that it was my decision, and I was at peace with it. Jessica looked at Mark. He returned the look. It was a silent exchange but loaded with meaning, as if they had had an entire conversation without words. Then Jessica said something that froze me. "Mom, don't you think $30,000 is a lot of money to spend on a house that is falling apart?" I replied that the house was not falling apart, that it just needed a new roof, that the structure was solid, that my father lived there and had the right to live with dignity. "But it just doesn't make sense," Jessica insisted. "It is throwing money in the trash. That house isn't even worth half of what you are spending to fix it." Mark nodded, backing his wife. "Jessica is right, Eleanor. That money could be used in a better way." It bothered me that my son-in-law was opining on my finances. But I kept my calm. I told them I appreciated their concern, but that my decision was made, that it was my money and my father. Jessica stood up from the chair. She called the kids to leave. All the warmth she had had upon arriving had disappeared. She said goodbye with a cold kiss on the cheek, and they left. That night I could not sleep well. Something about the way Jessica had reacted unsettled me. It was not genuine concern for my economy. It was something else. Something I could not quite identify, but it left a bitter taste in my mouth. The following days were quiet. The work was progressing well. I went to the farm every 2 or 3 days to supervise. My father was excited watching the roof transform. The workers were efficient and careful. But Jessica showed up again. It was a Saturday morning. She arrived alone this time, without Mark or the kids. She brought a bag of donuts and said she wanted to have breakfast with me. I thought maybe she was coming to apologize for her previous reaction. We had breakfast in the kitchen. We talked about trivial things at first. But it did not take long before she returned to the topic of money. "Mom, I have been thinking a lot about the farmhouse thing," she started. I told her there was nothing more to think about, that the subject was closed. "No, listen to me," she insisted. "I know you want to help Grandpa, but $30,000 is a lot of money. Have you thought about your future? About your old age?" I reminded her that I was 69 years old, not 90, that I still worked, that I had my pension, that I was doing fine financially. "But you never know what can happen," Jessica said. "You could get sick. You could need surgery. You could have an emergency. And all that money is going to be there, buried in the roof of an old house in the middle of nowhere." Her insistence was starting to annoy me. I told her firmly that I appreciated her concern, but that I was an adult and knew how to manage my money, that I did not need anyone to tell me how to spend it. Jessica changed tactics. Her voice became softer, almost sweet. "Mom, I know you don't like talking about this, but Mark and I are going through a tough time financially." That took me by surprise. I asked her what had happened. She told me that Mark had had problems at work, that they had cut his hours, that the apartment needed repairs, that the kids had school expenses, that things were tight. I felt compassion for her. I asked her how much they needed. "It's not that we need you to just give us money," she said quickly. "I just thought that if you have $30,000 to spend on a roof, maybe you could help your own daughter too." There it was, the real reason for her visit. I explained with patience that the money for the roof came from my emergency savings, that it was not money that was circulating freely, that it was already committed to the work, that the contract was signed. "But you haven't paid everything yet," argued Jessica. "You said you paid the 50% deposit. You still have the other 50%. I stood there looking at her, processing what she was saying. She was suggesting that I cancel the work halfway through, that I leave my father with a half-fixed roof, to give the money to her. I told her no, that was impossible, that I was not going to do that. Jessica pressed her lips together. I saw the frustration on her face, but she said nothing else. She stood up, gave me a mechanical hug, and left. That same afternoon I told everything to Margaret, my neighbor and friend of more than 20 years. Margaret is a wise, direct woman who always tells me things like they are. "Eleanor, open your eyes," she told me while we drank tea on her patio. "Your daughter is not worried about your future. She is worried about her present. She wants that money." I told her that maybe Jessica really was going through financial difficulties. "Could be," admitted Margaret, "but that does not give her the right to pressure you. You worked your whole life. That money is yours. And you are doing something noble with it, taking care of your father. Don't let them make you feel guilty." She was right, but I still felt bad. Jessica was my daughter. I did not want there to be tension between us. The work continued. 2 weeks later, the roof was almost finished. Only a few final details were missing. My father was radiant. He had returned to sleeping in his bed. The house felt dry and safe again. I paid the rest of the agreed money, the full $30,000. Every penny well spent seeing the happiness on my father's face. But the real problem was about to begin. Jessica came back to visit me 3 days after the work finished. This time she arrived with Mark. Both had a serious expression. They did not bring the kids. That already seemed strange to me. They sat in the living room. They rejected the coffee I offered. Mark went straight to the point. "Eleanor, we need to talk about the family's financial situation." The way he said it, so formal, so cold, put me on alert immediately. Jessica took the floor. "Mom, Mark and I have been talking a lot about this, and it doesn't seem fair to us." I asked her what did not seem fair to them. "That you spend $30,000 on a house that isn't even yours, while your own daughter is going through difficulties." I reminded her that the house belonged to my father, that he had lived there his whole life, that I was only fulfilling my duty as a daughter. "Your duty as a daughter," repeated Jessica with bitterness. "And your duty as a mother?" Those words hurt me. I told her that I had always fulfilled my duty as a mother, that I had raised her, educated her, supported her all her life. But now that I have problems, you aren't here for me, said Jessica, and her voice sounded loaded with resentment. $30,000, Mom. 30,000. Do you know what we could do with that money? Mark leaned forward on the sofa. We could pay off the credit card debt, fix the bathroom that has a leak, buy new clothes for the kids, catch up on the condo fees. I told them I understood they were going through difficulties, but that money was already spent, that the work was finished, that there was no way to get it back. But you have more savings, said Jessica. It was not a question. It was a statement. I stayed silent. It was true that I still had some savings, but they were for my own old age, for medical emergencies, for unforeseen events. It was not money I could give away just like that. I knew it, continued Jessica, seeing my silence. You have more money saved, and you prefer to leave it there unused rather than help your own daughter. Mark nodded, backing her up. It is selfish, Eleanor. Forgive me for saying it like this, but it is the truth. I felt the anger rising in my throat. Selfish? I was selfish for taking care of my 91-year-old father? For making sure he had a decent roof over his head? I told them with a firm voice that my money was mine, that I had worked my whole life to have it, that my husband and I had saved with sacrifice, and that I decided how to spend it. Sure, it's your money, said Jessica, standing up. But when you die, do you know who it's going to be for? For me. I am your only daughter. So in reality, that money is already mine. You are just managing it temporarily. I froze at those words. The way she said it, so calculating, so cold, as if I were just an obstacle between her and an inheritance. Mark also stood up. Just think about it, Eleanor. We aren't asking for charity. We are asking for what is fair. Jessica is your daughter. She has more right to your help than your father. They left without saying goodbye. I stayed seated on the sofa, trembling. Not from fear, but from disappointment. Was that how my own daughter saw me? As a source of money? That night, I called my father. I told him what had happened, although I tried to minimize it so as not to worry him. Arthur listened in silence and then said something I will never forget. Eleanor, that girl is showing her true colors. Be careful. When people start talking about inheritances while you are still alive, it is because they no longer see you as a person. They see you as money. He was right, but I did not want to accept it. She was my daughter. There had to be a way to make her understand. The following days were strangely quiet. Jessica did not call. She did not come to visit. I did not seek contact either. I needed space to process everything that had happened. But then Mark's calls began. The first was a Tuesday morning. He called my cell phone while I was at the fabric store. He told me he needed to talk to me alone, without Jessica, that maybe we could reach an agreement. I told him there was nothing to agree on, that my decision was made, he insisted. He said Jessica was very affected, that she was not sleeping well, that she felt rejected by her own mother, that he just wanted to find a solution that would make us all happy. I told him the solution was for them to respect my decisions. I hung up. Mark called back that same afternoon, and the next day, and the day after that, always with the same speech, that Jessica was suffering, that the kids needed things, that I had the capacity to help, that it was my responsibility as a grandmother. I stopped answering his calls. Then they showed up at my house. It was a Friday afternoon. I had just arrived from work. I was tired, wanting to shower and make something simple for dinner. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there they were, Jessica and Mark. Without the kids again. We need to talk, said Jessica, pushing the door before I could react. They entered my living room as if it were their house. Mark closed the door behind them. The gesture seemed threatening to me, although I could not explain exactly why. Mom, this has crossed the line, Jessica began. It's been 2 weeks since we talked, 2 weeks since you've seen your grandkids. Is this how you're going to leave things? I told her it was she who had stopped talking to me, that I was always available. No, Mom. You rejected us. You told us your money was more important than your family. Mark intervened. Eleanor, let's be practical. We need $15,000. It is half of what you spent on the roof. If you give us that, we are square. We go back to being a normal family. $15,000? Just like that? I told them they were crazy if they thought I was going to hand them that amount of money just because they asked for it. We aren't asking, said Jessica, and her voice changed. It became hard, sharp. We are demanding what is fair. Mark took out his cell phone. He showed me a calculator with numbers. Look, we did the math. During the last 12 years, we have gone to visit you, we have brought the kids to you, we have spent Christmases and birthdays with you. Our time is worth money. Our company is worth money. I could not believe what I was hearing. They were putting a price tag on family visits, on hugs from my grandkids, on Christmas dinners. I told them to get out of my house. That this conversation made no sense. Jessica walked up to me. For that old house, you have money, Mom. For that roof that is going to get ruined again in a few years. But for your own daughter, you have nothing. For your own grandkids, you have nothing, added Mark. I repeated to them to leave. My voice sounded firm, but inside I was shaking. Jessica looked at me with a disdain I had never seen in her. You know what, Mom? I think Grandpa brainwashed you. He was always selfish, and you turned out just the same. That was too much. My father was the most generous man I had ever met in my life. He had worked until he was 80 to support us. He had paid for Jessica's education. He had gifted her money for her wedding. And now she called him selfish. I screamed at them to get out, that I was not going to allow them to insult my father in my own house. Mark stood up, imposing. He is a big man, almost 6'3". In that moment, he used his size to intimidate me. He stood in front of me, looking down at me. You are going to give us that money, Eleanor. One way or another, you are going to do it. Jessica grabbed her purse. You have until Sunday to think about it. Either you give us $15,000 or you never see your grandkids again. And you can forget about us taking care of you when you are old and sick. They left, slamming the door. They left me trembling in the middle of my living room. I sat on the sofa and broke down crying. I could not believe my own daughter was extorting me, that she was using my grandkids as a blackmail tool. I called Margaret. She came right away. She brought me tea, hugged me, let me cry on her shoulder. When I calmed down, she told me something that opened my eyes. Eleanor, this isn't going to stop. Even if you give them the $15,000, they are going to come back for more, because now they know they can pressure you. You need to protect yourself. I asked her how. I felt defenseless. Go to a lawyer, Margaret told me firmly. Protect your assets. Make a will. Make sure that if something happens to you, that money goes where you want it to go, not where they think they have a right to. That night, I did not sleep. I thought about the grandkids I might not see again. I thought about Jessica, about how she had changed. Or maybe I never really knew her. I thought about my father, about how he would feel if he knew his granddaughter called him selfish. On Saturday morning, I went downtown. I looked for the office of a lawyer that a coworker at the store had recommended to me years ago, Mr. Harrison, a man of about 60, serious, with many years of experience in family law. I told him the whole situation. I omitted nothing. I told him about the roof, Jessica's visits, the threats, the blackmail with the grandkids. Mr. Harrison listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Mrs. Eleanor, unfortunately, your case is not unique. I see this more often than I would like. Adult children who see their parents as sources of money instead of as people. He asked me about my assets. I told him I had the house where I lived, some savings in the bank, the pension, and small investments my husband had left. Nothing extraordinary, but enough to live with dignity. And the farmhouse? Asked Mr. Harrison. I explained that the house was in my father's name. That legally it was his, even though I paid for the maintenance. Good, said Mr. Harrison. That is already a protection. But we need to do more. If you want to ensure your daughter cannot claim anything in the future, we have to take legal measures now. He explained the options. I could make a will leaving my assets to whomever I wanted. I could donate the farmhouse improvements to my father with a formal deed. I could even create a trust to protect my savings. I told him I wanted to do everything necessary. I no longer trusted Jessica to respect my wishes. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing documents, signing papers, planning the legal strategy. Mr. Harrison drafted a will where I left my assets to my father, Arthur, and in case he passed away before me, everything would go to a charity that took care of the elderly. Jessica would receive nothing. He also prepared a deed of donation for the farmhouse. Although it was already in my father's name, this deed clearly established that any improvement made to the property, including the new roof, was part of the donation. No family member could claim reimbursement. "Now comes the important part," said Mr. Harrison. "You have to keep these documents in a safe place, and I recommend that you always carry a copy with you, in your purse, for example." I asked him why. "Because if your daughter or son-in-law try to pressure you again, you can show them that there is nothing they can do, that everything is legally protected." Sometimes, seeing reality on paper makes people rethink things. I left the office with a folder full of documents. I felt safer, but also sadder. Had it really come to this point? Did I need to legally protect myself from my own daughter? I spent the rest of Saturday at home, alone, looking at those papers. I read the will over and over. I saw my signature at the end. Was it real? Was it definitive? Sunday came and went. Jessica and Mark did not appear. They did not call. It was the deadline they had given me to think about their demand for $15,000. I did not answer them. I was not going to give in. On Monday afternoon, while I was at the store organizing bolts of fabric, my cell phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mom, did you think about what we talked about?" I told her yes, that I had thought a lot, and that my answer was no. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Are you sure about that?" she asked with a dangerously calm voice. I told her completely sure. "Okay," she said. "Have it your way. You know the consequences." She hung up. The following days were tense. I expected them to show up at any moment, but there was no news, no calls, no visits. It was Margaret who alerted me. "Eleanor, I saw your daughter talking to the neighbor's son from the corner. That boy is a lawyer." My stomach tied in a knot. I asked her what they had talked about. "I don't know exactly, but the neighbor told me that Jessica asked him about inheritances, about how to go about claiming assets from parents who are still alive." I felt a chill. Jessica was looking for legal ways to take my money. She was not going to wait for me to die. She wanted to find some legal loophole to force me to give her what she wanted. I called Mr. Harrison. I told him what was happening. He reassured me. "Mrs. Eleanor, as long as you are in full possession of your mental faculties, no one can force you to give away your assets. The documents we signed protect you completely. There is no legal way your daughter can claim anything." I felt relieved, but also scared. If Jessica could not get the money legally, what would she do? The answer came Thursday night. I was at home, making dinner, when I heard loud banging on the door. It wasn't the doorbell. They were punches on the wood. I looked through the peephole. It was Jessica, her face distorted with fury. Mark was behind her. I didn't open. I shouted through the door for them to leave. "Open this door, Mom," screamed Jessica. "We have to talk." I told her there was nothing to talk about, that I had already given them my answer. Mark hit the door harder. "Eleanor, don't make us call the police. Open the door." "Call the police? Why?" They were the ones making a scene. But I was afraid. I grabbed my cell phone, ready to dial 911 if necessary. The banging continued for several minutes. Then, silence. I thought they had gone. But then I heard Jessica's voice, calmer, speaking from the other side. "Mom, please. We just want to talk. I promise we are going to be calm, but we need to resolve this. Please." Her voice sounded pleading now, almost broken. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, just a little, with the security chain on. "Take that chain off," said Mark immediately. I told them it was fine like this, that we could talk like this. Jessica pushed the door hard, making the chain go taut. "Mom, don't be ridiculous. Open up properly." I told her no, that if they wanted to talk, they could do it like this. Mark moved closer. He put his hand on the doorframe. "Eleanor, listen well. We found out you went to see a lawyer. What did you do? You changed your will." My heart was beating fast. How had they found out? Then I remembered. The neighbor's son, the young lawyer. He must know Mr. Harrison. News travels fast in professional circles. I didn't answer them. I knew it, said Jessica bitterly. I knew it. You left me out of the will, didn't you? Your own daughter. Mark slapped the door frame with an open palm. That is a mistake, Eleanor. A grave mistake. We can contest that will. We can prove you were under pressure, that you weren't in your right mind. I told them I was perfectly fine in the head, that I had made my decisions consciously, that I had the right to do what I wanted with my assets. But I am your daughter, screamed Jessica. Your only daughter. How can you do this to me? I told her she had brought it on herself, that she had extorted me, that she had used my grandkids as a blackmail tool, that she had insulted my father. I did all that because I am desperate, said Jessica, and now she was crying. Because I need help, and my own mother turns her back on me. Don't you understand? We are drowning in debt. The bank is pressuring us. They could take the apartment. Mark nodded, backing her. It's true, Eleanor. We aren't playing. If we don't get money soon, we are going to lose everything. And you can prevent it. You have the money. You just have to help us. I told them that if they were really in such a serious situation, there were other options. They could talk to the bank, look for refinancing, ask for a loan from another institution, but that I was not going to be their source of easy money. Easy money, repeated Jessica with disbelief. Mom, I am your daughter. It is not easy money. It is the least you can do for me after everything I have done for you. I asked her what exactly she had done for me. Jessica started listing on her fingers. I visit you. I call you. I bring the grandkids so you aren't alone. I spend time with you. I invite you to my house. I cook for you. I worry about you. Everything she mentioned sounded like a sacrifice, as if being with me was a burden she had heroically endured. I told her that if she had done all those things expecting payment in return, then they were never genuine. That family love is not charged for, that it is not put on an invoice. Mark hit the door again, this time harder. Enough with the cheap philosophy, Eleanor. Let's get to the point. We need money. You have it, and you are going to share it because we are family. I told them no, that I was closing the door, and if they didn't leave, I would call the police. Call whoever you want, said Mark with contempt. But this doesn't end here. I closed the door. I heard them shouting on the other side for several more minutes. Then, finally, they left. That night I slept with the cell phone next to the bed, with the emergency number typed in, ready to just press call if necessary. Every noise woke me up. Every shadow scared me. The next day I went to work as usual, although I was exhausted. At the store, I tried to concentrate on helping customers, on organizing fabrics, on doing inventory. But my mind was elsewhere. During lunch, I called Mr. Harrison. I told him about the visit the night before, about the threats. Mrs. Eleanor, this is harassment. If they continue pressuring you this way, you can file a police report. The law protects you. I told him I didn't want to go to that extreme. Despite everything, Jessica was still my daughter. I didn't want to get her in legal trouble. Understand that sometimes the only way to stop people is to show them that there are real consequences, Mr. Harrison told me. If they believe you aren't going to do anything, they are going to continue. He was right. But I wasn't ready for that step yet. The following days passed without incident. No calls, no visits. I started to think maybe Jessica had understood, that maybe she realized she wasn't going to get anything by pressuring me. How naive I was. On Saturday afternoon, I was at home folding clean laundry when I heard the doorbell. I looked through the peephole, expecting to see the neighbor who sometimes brought me vegetables from his garden. But it was Jessica. Alone this time. Without Mark. She had a calm face, almost sweet. Like the Jessica I remembered from years ago. I opened the door with the chain on. "Mom," she said softly, "please, I just want to talk." No yelling, no Mark, just you and me. Something in her voice softened me. She was my daughter, my only daughter. Maybe she really wanted to fix things. I took the chain off and opened the door. Jessica entered slowly. She sat on the sofa. She accepted the glass of water I offered. She seemed genuinely remorseful. "Mom, I know things got out of control," she began. "Mark and we are under a lot of pressure. But I shouldn't have treated you like that. I shouldn't have said those horrible things about Grandpa." I told her it had hurt me a lot to hear her talk like that about my father. "I know," she said, lowering her gaze. "I was angry, frustrated. But I didn't mean it seriously. Grandpa was always good to me." We stayed in silence for a moment. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe my daughter had returned to reason. "Mom," continued Jessica, "I didn't come to ask you for money. I just came to apologize and to tell you that I understand you. I understand that you want to take care of Grandpa. I understand that you use your money however you see fit." I felt enormous relief. Maybe things could be fixed after all. "But there is something I need to ask you," said Jessica, "and I need you to be honest with me." I told her, of course, to ask whatever she wanted. "Is it true that you changed your will? That you left me out?" I hesitated before answering, but I decided to be honest. I told her yes. That after everything that had happened, I had decided to leave my assets to my father and to charities. Jessica nodded slowly, as if processing the information. "And the farmhouse? Did you do anything regarding that house?" I explained about the deed of donation. That now it was officially and legally established that the house and all its improvements belonged to my father. That no one could claim anything. "I see," said Jessica. Her voice remained calm, but I noticed her hands were squeezing the water glass tighter. "And where are those documents?" "At the bank," I told her. "I have copies in my house, in a safe place." "Can I see them?" she asked. "Just to understand better. To know exactly what it says." Something inside me warned me not to do it. But another part of me, the part that still wanted to trust my daughter, thought that maybe showing her the documents would help her accept reality. To close this chapter, I got up and went to my bedroom. I took the folder with the copies out of my dresser drawer. I went back to the living room. Jessica was standing by the window, looking out. She turned when she heard me enter. I showed her the documents. She read them with attention, turning the pages slowly. I saw how her jaw tensed with every paragraph. "This is very definitive," she said finally. "There is no way to change it, is there?" I told her that as long as I was alive and in my right mind, I could change whatever I wanted. But that for now, this was my decision. Jessica returned the documents to the folder. She looked at me intently. "Mom, do you know what this means?" "It means I worked my whole life being your daughter for nothing. It means all the time I spent with you, all the Christmases, all the birthdays, everything was useless." I told her that way of thinking was exactly the reason I had made this decision. That she viewed our relationship as an economic investment, not as love. "Don't say stupid things," replied Jessica, and her voice returned to that hard tone. "Everything in life is a transaction. You gave me life, I give you my time and my attention. That is the way it works." I told her she was wrong. That love didn't work like that. Jessica laughed. It was a short, bitter laugh. "Love. How romantic you are, Mom. Meanwhile, I am sinking in debt, and you have money saved that you could use to save me." I reminded her there were options. That they could sell the car, move to a cheaper apartment, cut expenses. That there were ways to get out of debt without depending on my money. "Sell the car? Move?" repeated Jessica with disbelief. "Why would we have to do that when you have more than enough money? Why do we have to sacrifice when you live comfortably?" I told her I lived on what I had worked for my whole life. That it wasn't comfortable, it was prudent. That I had saved with effort for decades. "Exactly," said Jessica, pointing a finger at me. "You worked, you saved. And for what? To give it all to charities? To strangers? Instead of your own blood?" I explained that I preferred my money to help people who really needed it, not someone who just wanted to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Jessica walked up to me. Her face was red with contained fury. "I can't believe you are so selfish, so cruel. Is this how you are going to leave me? With nothing?" I told her I wasn't leaving her with nothing. That she had her job, her husband, her apartment, that she had much more than many people in this world. "But I could have more," shouted Jessica. "I could have what belongs to me." I told her nothing belonged to her. that I didn't owe her anything beyond what I had already given her during her childhood and youth. Jessica was breathing heavily. She looked around the living room as if looking for something. Her eyes stopped on my purse, which was on the dining table. "What else do you have in there?" she asked, pointing at the purse. "More documents? More secrets?" I told her it was just my normal purse, with my personal things. "I want to see it," she said, walking toward the table. I told her no, that it was my privacy. But Jessica had already grabbed the purse. She opened it and started taking things out. My wallet, my keys, a pack of tissues, my cell phone. "Jessica, stop," I told her, trying to take the purse from her. "You have no right." She pushed me gently but firmly. "I have every right. I am your daughter. I need to know what else you are hiding from me." She took out the wallet and opened it. She counted the money inside. Barely $50 in cash. "Is this all you carry? Where is your bank card?" I told her I wasn't going to tell her. Jessica emptied the purse completely onto the table. Everything fell in a mess. And then she saw it. The manila envelope that Mr. Harrison had given me. The envelope containing the certified copies of all the legal documents. "What is this?" she asked, grabbing the envelope. I told her to give it back to me. That they were private documents. But Jessica was already opening the envelope. She took out the papers. Her eyes scanned the pages quickly. I saw how her expression went from curiosity to understanding, and then to absolute fury. This is official," she said with a trembling voice. "It is already registered. It is already legal. I can't do anything." I told her that was right, that my decisions were already made and legally protected. Jessica dropped the papers on the table. She put her hands to her head. "I can't believe it. I can't believe you went this far. That you hated me this much." I told her I didn't hate her. That I was simply protecting what was mine. Protecting my right to decide about my own assets. "Protecting!" shouted Jessica. "From who?" "From your own daughter." I told her yes. From her. Because she had proven she was only interested in my money. At that moment, I heard the front door open. My heart stopped. I had locked that door. How had someone entered? Mark appeared in the doorway of the living room. He had a key in his hand. My key. The one I had given him years ago for emergencies, when the kids were little. "What is going on here?" asked Mark, looking at the scattered papers on the table. "Look at this," said Jessica, passing him the documents. "Look at what she did. She left us out of everything." "Everything, Mark." Mark read the papers with attention. His face hardened with every line. When he finished, he looked at me with a coldness that terrified me. "This was a mistake, Eleanor, a very big mistake. I told him to get out of my house. Both of them. Immediately." "Not yet," said Mark, walking toward me. "First, we are going to solve this." Jessica stood by his side. The two of them cornered me against the living room wall. I backed up until my back touched the wall. "You are going to change this," said Mark, pointing at the documents. "You are going to call your lawyer right now, and you are going to reverse all this." I told him no, that I wasn't going to do that. "Yes, you are going to do it," insisted Mark. His voice was low but threatening. "Because if you don't do it, things are going to get very difficult for you." I asked him if he was threatening me. "I am being realistic," replied Mark. "You are an older woman. You live alone. Many things can happen. Accidents, falls, health problems that require someone to make decisions for you." I felt a chill. Was he suggesting what I thought? Jessica intervened. "Mom, Mark is just saying you need to be reasonable. Think about your future. Who is going to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself anymore?" "Me? Your daughter." "Then it is fair that I have access to your resources." I told them I preferred going to a nursing home rather than depending on them. "With what money?" asked Mark with a cruel smile. "If all your money is going to be tied up in trusts and donations, you won't be able to pay for a good home." Jessica nodded. "Exactly. You are going to end up in a horrible place. Alone, abandoned. While if you give us what belongs to us now, we will take care of you. I promise you we will take care of you." It was a threat disguised as a promise. It was clear to me that if I didn't give in, they were going to make sure my old age was miserable. I told them I didn't care, that I preferred anything rather than rewarding their behavior. Mark lost his patience. He got closer to me. Listen to me well, you stubborn old woman. You are going to do what we are asking, because Jessica is your legal heir. She is your only daughter, and when you are sick in bed, she is going to have the right to make decisions for you. So you better fix this now the easy way, or we are going to fix it later the hard way. Jessica put her hand on Mark's arm. Calm down. We don't need to get to that. She turned to me. Mom, let's be practical. You aren't going to live forever. That money is eventually going to be mine anyway. Why not make it easier for everyone? Give me a part now. Just $15,000. We solve our problems and go back to being family. I told her no. 1,000 times no. Mark took a deep breath, trying to control his rage. Fine. I see we aren't getting anywhere talking. He walked to the table and grabbed my purse. He went through it again, more carefully this time. He took everything out, opened every compartment. Where is your bank card? He asked. I told him I wasn't going to give it to him. I am not asking you, replied Mark. I am looking. Jessica joined the search. Between the two of them, they emptied my purse completely, checking every pocket, every space. She must have it somewhere, said Jessica. Check her wallet again. Mark opened my wallet and took out all the cards. ID card, health insurance card, grocery store discount card, and finally, my bank debit card. Here it is, said Mark, smiling. He held the card up high like a trophy. Give me that, I told him, trying to grab the card. You have no right. Mark raised his arm, keeping it out of my reach. Of course I have the right. Jessica is your daughter. We are family. This money is as much hers as yours. Jessica took out her cell phone. Give me the PIN number. Mom, we are going to make a transfer right now. Just $15,000. It isn't even everything we asked you for. I told them they were crazy if they thought I was going to give them my PIN. Then, we are going to do it another way, said Mark, putting the card in his pocket. We are going to go to the bank tomorrow, the three of us together, and you are going to withdraw the cash. I told him I wasn't going to do that. That they could keep the card if they wanted, but without the PIN it was useless, and I didn't plan on giving it to them. Mark got close to me again. His face was inches from mine. Eleanor, don't provoke me. I can get very unpleasant when provoked. I felt real fear for the first time. This man was capable of anything. I saw it in his eyes. Jessica noticed my expression of terror. Mark, stop. You are scaring her. Good, replied Mark without taking his eyes off me. Let her be scared. Let's see if that way she understands the gravity of the situation. I tried to move to the side, but Mark blocked my path. I was trapped between him and the wall. Give me the PIN, he repeated. 4 numbers. That is all I need. I told him no. My voice was trembling, but my decision was firm. Mark raised his hand. For a moment, I thought he was going to hit me. Jessica thought so too because she screamed his name. But Mark didn't hit me. Instead, he grabbed my arm tightly. His fingers dug into my skin. Let me go, I told him. You are hurting me. I am barely touching you, replied Mark. If you want to know what hurting is, keep being stubborn. Jessica looked uncomfortable. Mark, stop. This isn't necessary. Oh, really? Asked Mark, turning to her. And then what do you suggest? That we leave empty-handed again? That we keep begging her while she lives like a queen and we sink? No. Jessica didn't finish the sentence. She lowered her gaze. Mark let go of my arm. I rubbed it, feeling the pain where his fingers had pressed. Surely it was going to leave marks. You know what? Said Mark, walking toward the table. I am tired of this. He grabbed my purse again. He turned it upside down and shook all its contents onto the table. More things fell out. A pack of gum, an old receipt, a photo of my grandkids. And then, from the bottom of the purse, another envelope fell out. Smaller, white. Mark picked it up. He opened it before I could react. Inside was something I had put there barely a week ago, something Mr. Harrison had suggested I carry with me always as a precaution. Mark took the document out of the envelope. He started reading. Jessica got closer to see what it was. I saw the exact moment they understood what they were reading. The moment reality hit them. Mark's face went pale. completely pale, as if the blood had drained from his body in seconds. Jessica took the paper from Mark's hands. Her eyes scanned the lines 1, 2, 3 times, as if she couldn't believe what she was reading. This is, Jessica began, but couldn't finish. It was a certified copy of my will. But it wasn't just that. Along with the will was another document, a declaration of mental capacity certified by a geriatric doctor and a psychologist, signed, stamped, dated from the previous week. Mr. Harrison had suggested I do it. If they ever try to declare that you are not in your right mind to make decisions, this document will prove otherwise. It is additional protection. I had gone to get all the exams. Memory tests, reasoning tests, complete psychological evaluations, and I had passed perfectly on all of them. The doctors had certified in writing that I was in full use of my mental faculties, that my decisions were conscious, informed, and valid. But that was not all that was in that envelope. There was also a letter addressed to Jessica, written in my own handwriting, dated and notarized. In that letter, I explained exactly why I had made the decisions I had made. I documented every threat, every extortion, every moment of pressure I had suffered. I named dates, quoted exact words they had said, and at the end of the letter, I declared that if something happened to me under suspicious circumstances, this letter was to be delivered to the authorities, that I had left copies with my lawyer and with Margaret, that everything was documented. Mark dropped the paper as if it burned. He stepped back several steps. Jessica kept reading the letter. I saw how her hands were shaking, how her lips moved in silence, repeating the words I had written. You documented everything, she said finally with a broken voice. Every conversation, every visit, everything. I told her yes. That from the first time they asked me for money, I had started taking notes. That I had a complete journal of everything that had happened between us in the last 3 months. Mark looked at me with a mix of fear and rage. This is a trap. You set a trap for us. I told him it wasn't a trap. It was protection. It was evidence. It was making sure that if they tried anything against me, there would be consequences. The threats you just made, I told Mark with a firm voice. The suggestions of accidents and health problems. All that is recorded in my letter. And if something happens to me, everyone is going to know you had a motive. Jessica dropped the letter on the table. I can't believe you did this. That you went this far. I am your daughter, Mom. Your own daughter. I told her that for that very reason, it hurt me so much to have to do it. That I never thought I would have to protect myself from my own blood. Mark was pacing back and forth in the living room, running his hands through his hair. This is. It can't be real. It is very real, I told him. And now you are going to leave my house, both of you. And you are never coming back. Jessica looked at me with eyes full of tears. Mom, please. It doesn't have to be this way. I told her yes, it had to be this way. That they themselves had decided it with their actions. With their threats, with their greed. It isn't greed, sobbed Jessica. It is need. We need help. I told her there were many ways to ask for help, and that they had chosen the worst of all. Mark stopped pacing. He looked at me intently. And now what? Are you going to report us? I told him no, that I wasn't going to report them, that I just wanted them to leave and leave me in peace, to respect my decision and my life. But that letter, began Mark. That letter is only opened if something happens to me, I explained. If I live my life quietly, if I die a natural death when my time comes, nobody will ever read what it says. It will stay stored with Mr. Harrison. Jessica wiped her tears. So there is still a chance? To fix this? I told her the only way to fix this was for them to accept my decisions, for them to stop pressuring me for money, that if they wanted to have a relationship with me, it had to be genuine, without economic interests. But the will, said Jessica. The will stays as it is, I told her firmly. That is not negotiable. But if you demonstrate over the next few years that you can respect me, that you can love me without expecting anything in return, maybe, just maybe, I could reconsider some things. It was a lie. I wasn't going to change anything, but I needed to give them something so they would leave. So they would leave me in peace. Mark looked at Jessica. Jessica looked at him. They had another one of those silent conversations. "Okay," said Mark finally. "We're leaving, but I want you to know something, Eleanor. This isn't forgotten. What you did today, documenting us as if we were criminals, that isn't forgotten." I told him that what they did wasn't forgotten either. That the threats, the extortion, the attempt to steal my bank card, all that stayed engraved in my memory. Jessica picked up her purse. She approached me one last time. "Mom, someday you are going to regret this. Someday you are going to be alone, sick, and you are going to need me, and I won't be there." I told her I preferred being alone to being surrounded by people who only wanted me for my money. Jessica let out a bitter laugh. "How noble you look now. How dignified. But deep down, you know you are going to regret it." Mark was already at the door. He had my bank card still in his hand. He looked at it for a moment, as if considering taking it anyway. But then he threw it on the dining table with contempt. "Keep your money," he said. "Keep everything. I hope it makes you very happy when you are dying alone in a hospital." "Mark, let's go," said Jessica, pulling him by the arm. But before leaving, she turned to me one last time. "One more thing. Mom, the kids, Ethan and Sophie. You aren't going to see them anymore. I don't want them near someone so selfish." Those words hurt me more than anything else they had said. My grandkids, my little ones. But I knew it was another form of blackmail, another way to pressure me. I told them it was their decision. That if they wanted to use their children as weapons, that spoke very poorly of them as parents. But that I wasn't going to give in to that kind of manipulation. Jessica opened her mouth to respond, but Mark pushed her gently toward the door. "Enough, let's go. This woman isn't worth more of our time." I saw them leave. I heard their steps in the hallway, the sound of the elevator opening and closing, and then silence. I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by the contents of my purse scattered on the table, with the documents they had seen, with the evidence of everything I had had to do to protect myself. My legs started to shake. I sat on the sofa before they buckled completely. And then, finally, I allowed myself to cry. I cried for the daughter I had lost, or maybe for the daughter I never really had. I cried for the grandkids I might not see again. I cried for having to reach these extremes to protect what was mine. I don't know how much time I spent like that. It could have been half an hour. It could have been 2 hours. Time meant nothing in that moment. When I could finally get up, I picked everything up from the table. I put the documents in the envelope. I organized my purse. Every movement was mechanical, automatic. I called Margaret. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to tell what had happened. "I'm coming over," she said, without even letting me finish explaining. "Give me 10 minutes." She arrived in 7, with a bag of donuts and a bottle of wine. "I thought you were going to need it," she said, hugging me at the door. We sat in the kitchen. I told her everything, every detail, every word that was said, every threat, every moment of terror I felt. Margaret listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took a long sip of wine and sighed. "Eleanor, you did the right thing. I know it hurts. I know it is horrible to have to document your own family as if they were enemies, but it was necessary." I told her I felt terrible, that I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan and Sophie, that I was losing them. "You aren't losing them," Margaret corrected me. "Jessica is the one choosing to use her children as tools. That is her responsibility, not yours." She was right, but it still hurt. "And if I really don't see them again?" I asked her. "What if they grow up thinking their grandmother didn't love them?" Margaret took my hand. "Kids are smarter than we think. When they grow up, when they are older, they are going to understand. They are going to look for answers. And the truth always comes to light." We spent the rest of the night talking. Margaret helped me process everything. She reminded me why I had done what I did. She gave me the strength I needed not to crumble. When she finally left, it was almost 2 in the morning. I went to sleep exhausted, but strangely at peace. I had gone through the worst moment. I had faced Jessica and Mark, and I had survived. The following days were quiet, too quiet. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced. But it was never Jessica. It was never Mark. A week later, I called my father. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to know I had done the right thing protecting him. "Eleanor, are you okay?" asked Arthur as soon as he answered. "I hear something weird in your voice." I told him a reduced version of what had happened. I didn't want to worry him with all the details, but I needed him to know. Arthur was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That girl takes after her father's family. My son-in-law was good, but his family always had that way of viewing money as the most important thing. I had never thought about that. My husband had been generous and hardworking, but I remembered that his brother had always been problematic with money issues. Maybe Jessica had inherited something of that. "Dad," I said to him, "did I do right? Was I wrong to protect my assets this way?" "Eleanor," replied my father with a firm voice, "you did what you had to do. No one, not even your own daughter, has the right to take away what you worked your whole life for. And I thank you for protecting me too. This new roof is more than a roof. It is dignity. It is love. It is respect. And that has no price." His words made me cry again, but this time they were tears of relief, of knowing that at least one person in my family understood, that at least my father supported me. 2 weeks later, Mr. Harrison called me. "Mrs. Eleanor, I need to inform you of something. Your daughter has been making inquiries." I felt a knot in my stomach. "What kind of inquiries?" "She has consulted with other lawyers. She is looking for ways to contest the will, to declare that you were not in your right mind when you signed it." I told him that was impossible, that I had the medical certification, the psychological evaluation. Everything was documented. "Exactly," said Mr. Harrison. "And those other lawyers have told her so. There is no case. You are legally protected in every possible way. But I thought you should know, so you are alert." I thanked him for letting me know. I hung up the phone feeling validated. Jessica had tried to find a way to take my money legally and had failed. The documents I had were solid, unbreakable. A month passed, then 2. Life began to find a new rhythm. I kept working at the fabric store. I visited my father every 2 weeks. I met with Margaret to drink coffee. It was a quiet life, simple, but mine. There were moments when I missed Jessica, the Jessica I thought I knew. There were moments when I saw kids the age of Ethan and Sophie and felt a sharp pain in my chest. But there were also moments of peace, of knowing I had done the right thing, of knowing no one was manipulating or pressuring me, of being able to sleep peacefully without fearing someone would come to demand money from me. One day, while I was organizing fabrics at the store, a customer entered who looked at me with curiosity. "Are you Eleanor?" she asked. I told her yes, wondering how she knew me. "I am Jessica's cousin. She told me you guys had problems." I felt immediate tension. What would Jessica have told her? But the woman smiled. "I just wanted to tell you that you did good. My cousin has always been like that, since she was a child. She always believed the world owed her something, and Mark is worse. Between the two of them, they have ruined several family relationships over money." I stayed surprised. "Other relationships?" The cousin nodded. "Mark's parents haven't spoken to them for 3 years. Because of a similar problem, they wanted the in-laws to gift them money for a new car. When they refused, Jessica and Mark cut them off completely. That information gave me a new perspective. It wasn't just with me, it was a pattern, a way of being that they had with anyone who had something they wanted. "Don't feel guilty," the cousin told me before leaving. "You are protecting yourself, and you have every right." That night I went to bed thinking about those words, about how sometimes people show you who they really are, and you have to believe them. Jessica had shown me who she was, and I had acted accordingly. 3 months after the incident, I received a letter. It came without a return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Jessica. I stared at the envelope for several minutes before opening it. Part of me was afraid of what it might say. Another part had hope that maybe it was an apology, an opportunity for reconciliation. I opened the letter with trembling hands. "Mom," it began, "I am not writing to ask for forgiveness because I don't think I did anything wrong. I only asked for what was fair, what any daughter would expect from her mother. If you can't see it like that, it is your problem, not mine. I want you to know that Ethan and Sophie ask about you sometimes. I have told them you are very busy. I haven't told them the truth, because I don't want them to think badly of you. But someday they are going to know that their grandmother rejected them, that she preferred her money over her family. Mark and I are fine. We got a loan from the bank. We are paying our debts. We made it without your help, as you see. We didn't really need you. We just wanted to know if we could count on you. And you proved we couldn't. I hope when you are old and alone, you remember this moment. Remember that you had the opportunity to have your family close, but you chose money. Jessica. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and kept it in the folder with all the other documents. It was one more piece of evidence. One more sample of how Jessica viewed the situation. It didn't cause me the pain she probably expected it to cause. On the contrary, it gave me clarity. It confirmed that I had made the right decision. I showed the letter to Margaret that afternoon. She read it and shook her head. This girl still doesn't understand. She still sees herself as the victim. I told her she probably never would understand. That some people don't have the capacity to see their own mistakes. And the grandkids? Asked Margaret. How do you feel regarding them? I sighed. It hurts. I won't lie. But I also know Jessica is using this as punishment. If I gave in, if I gave her the money she wants, the kids would magically appear again. And that is not love. It is manipulation. Margaret nodded. And the kids, when they grow up, are going to be able to decide for themselves. They are going to be able to look for you if they want. She was right. Ethan was 10 years old, Sophie 7. In a few more years they would be teenagers. They could make their own decisions. If they wanted to know my version of the story, they would know where to find me. I visited my father that weekend. The new roof looked beautiful, shiny and strong. Without a single leak, Arthur was radiant, showing me every detail. Look how good it turned out, he said, pointing to the new beams. It is going to last another 50 years easily. I smiled at him. Seeing his happiness made it all worth it. Every penny spent, every conflict faced, everything. We sat in the yard under the apple trees. We drank coffee while the sun went down. Dad, I said to him, do you regret anything in your life? Arthur thought for a moment. I regret not having been firmer with your mother when her family asked us for borrowed money and never paid us back. I regret having allowed them to take advantage of us for years. That response surprised me. You never knew how to say no. Exactly, said my father. And you learned from my mistakes. You do know how to say no, and that makes you stronger than I was. His words filled me with pride. My father, the man I admired most in the world, was telling me he was proud of me. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what is yours, continued Arthur. You worked for that money. You earned it honestly, and you have every right to decide what to do with it. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking about lighter things, about the neighbors, about the weather, about the apples that would soon be ripe on the trees. They were simple conversations, but precious. When I left that night, driving back to the city under a sky full of stars, I felt at peace, a deep peace I hadn't felt in months. The following months passed quietly. I continued with my routine. Work, visits to my father, coffees with Margaret. It was a simple life, but it was mine, without pressures, without manipulations, without fear. One day, 6 months after the whole conflict, I was at the store when a customer entered who looked familiar to me. He was an older man, well-dressed, with completely white hair. He looked at me and smiled. Eleanor, you are Arthur's daughter. I told him yes, wondering how he knew me. I am Dr. Evans. I treat your father at the health center. He talks a lot about you, about what you did for him with the roof of his house. I felt warmth in my chest. My father exaggerates. I only did what any daughter would do. Dr. Evans shook his head. No, Eleanor, not any daughter would do it. I see many cases of abandoned elderly people, of families that only appear when there are inheritances to claim. What you did is special. Your father is lucky to have you. Those words accompanied me the rest of the day. They reminded me why I had done everything I did, why I had confronted Jessica, why I had protected my assets. It wasn't out of selfishness. It was out of love, out of dignity. out of doing the right thing. The first anniversary of the conflict arrived without fanfare, a full year without talking to Jessica, without seeing my grandkids. There were moments when it hurt deeply. There were moments when I asked myself if I had been too hard. But then I remembered the threats, the attempt to steal my card, the cruel words about my father, and I knew I had done the right thing. Margaret organized a small dinner at my house that night. She invited some neighbors from the building, women my age who had become friends over the years. During dinner, one of them, Sylvia, shared her own story, how her son had asked her for borrowed money and never paid her back, how now he avoided her because he didn't want to face the debt. Another, Elaine, told how her daughter expected her to sell her house to help her buy a bigger one for the whole family. I realized I wasn't alone, that many older women faced similar pressures from their families, that my story wasn't unique. The important thing, said Margaret at the end of the night, is that all of us learn to set limits, to say no to protect what is ours. That doesn't make us bad mothers or bad grandmothers. It makes us people with dignity. We all toasted to that, to dignity, to self-respect, to the right to decide about our own lives and our own money. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my living room looking at old photos of Jessica when she was a child, of my husband, of happy moments that would not return. I felt sadness, yes, but not regret. I had done what I had to do. I had protected my estate. I had taken care of my father. I had established healthy boundaries. And if that meant losing a daughter who only saw me as a source of money, then so be it. I put the photos away and took out the folder with all the documents. The will, the medical certification, the letter I had written, the deed of donation. Everything was in order. Everything was protected. I added Jessica's letter to the folder. It was the last piece, the final evidence that she had never understood, never changed. I closed the folder and put it in the safe place where I always kept it, along with my purse, where I always carried copies. I went to sleep that night feeling complete. Not happy exactly, because the loss of the relationship with Jessica would always hurt, but complete, at peace, safe. I had learned an invaluable lesson, that sometimes protecting yourself means distancing yourself from the people you love. That setting limits isn't selfishness, it is survival. That your money, your assets, your life are yours to decide. And that nobody, absolutely nobody, has the right to take that away from you. Not even your own daughter. The next day, I called my father. "Dad, how is the roof?" "Perfect," he replied with a cheerful voice. "Not a single leak. I sleep like a baby every night. Thanks to you, sweetie. Thanks to you." And in that moment I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had made the right decision. That $30,000 spent on giving dignity to my father was worth more than any relationship based on manipulation and greed. I hung up the phone and looked out the window. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. And I was okay. Alone, yes, but okay. Free, protected, owner of my own life. And that, after all, was the only thing that really mattered.